Emmaus, I can only speak for my community here at VC, that they give you so much, you know, you shouldn't take things for granted. I had nothing basically when I was homeless, and they give you everything here, but it is hard. That's why I threw myself into solidarity. You get off site, you're helping, you're giving, and I've got a massive passion for it, and I basically will do this till I die, in all honesty. I'm Christian, I'm a companion at Emmaus Village Carlton, Bedfordshire for 7 years. When I was actually homeless for 2 years, used to live in the woods, and my sister found out through one of her meetings she went to, an ex-companion was going to these meetings. They got talking, my sister told basically the ex-companion about my life, and he was, like I say, a companion at Emmaus Village Carlton. We got onto the website, we contacted one of the support workers, and a week later I was a companion at Emmaus Village Carlton. I'm quite an outdoor person, so it's like a wild camping trip really. There were the hard times, the winters were the hardest, the cold and the damp, that was the hardest, but yeah, the human body is quite a resilient thing, and yeah, I got through it, and without actually that stroke of luck about Emmaus Village Carlton, I would have probably been on the streets a lot longer, because I had no help from councils. The places where they did send me to were basically full of people still with serious addictions, and I basically felt safer still being on the streets in the woods than being in one of these hostels or these institutes. What they need to really do is basically have accommodation with 24 hours of support with drug and alcohol, and then have separate accommodation, which is actually Emmaus, Emmaus for the UK and for Europe, where you want to move on. But when you choose to leave Emmaus, you need to be in areas where there isn't that risk of basically just coming off the bandwagon that you worked so hard over the years to overcome your demons. And yeah, so that's what they really need to do, so you can start a normal life again. But it's part and parcel of when you become homelessness, the majority of people turn to drink to get you through the days, their long days, their cold nights, their lonely times. There's like days when I went 4 or 5 days without actually speaking to anyone. So then things start going around in your head about your life you used to have, you know, your marriage, your children, your work, the success you had, and then all of a sudden with the drinking and the loneliness, the torments come back, and it just goes over and over in your head, and it destroys you, and just, yeah, it completely destroys you. When I come to Emmaus, I chose to go out there with the solidarity work that we do 3 days a week now, and all the behind the scenes solidarity charity work we do, and just plough myself into that and give the people something that I never had when I was a homeless person. As soon as I came in, as soon as I found out about the soup run in Bedford, I threw myself into that, and we grew it, because we used to do it fortnightly, one night. Then we started going out, doing the soup run. Then we'd go out with rucksacks around Bedford, looking for basically vulnerable people that didn't want to actually come to the soup run, where there'd be groups of 10, 20, 30 people. You know, we'd go and seek them out. We'd go to the top of car parks where there's air conditioning units, where there's a source of warmth. We'd go around the courts down by the river where there's like these arches where it's kind of private. And so we'd go and seek people out in churchyards in Bedford. Yeah, and that was basically the start of it. And then Chloe Markovic, she started as the support manager, and her background was in Northampton. And she suggested, why don't we expand and start in Northampton? So that's what we did. So we headed off into Northampton with our rucksacks and trolleys and water urns and food and trolleys of clothing and sleeping bags and tents. And I remember it's the winter, because we was going into cemeteries and industrial wastelands with snow on the ground, And you've got to be careful that I'd always advise people who's out with his companions, or staff or trustees, not to kneel down in the snow, because these are users and there could be discarded needles on the floor. And for a lot of the people's safety, I'd only take one person with me into these areas, because one, you don't want to startle people in their tents, you know, because they may be injecting. So you've got to walk in there. And in the early days, we was basically new, and we had to explain to them that we're basically a homeless charity. We're not a church group. We're not security. We're not landowners. And it took sometimes 2 or 3 weeks to gain these homeless people's trust. Then they'd come out, they'd chat, they're understanding that we're there to basically just help them. It's not just about listening to their story, you've got to tell them about your journey as well. And when they can make parallels with their life to your life, and how far that we, the other companions, have progressed in our sort of like journey with Emmaus, then hopefully they can gain some strength from that. And also the trust. And there's guys in Bedford and Northampton, even to this day, you know, sort of like 5.5, 6 years later, that still know who we are, you know, and I've got some great relationships. We've lost a lot of people over the years. It's near on 30 that I can basically say that have either died from pneumonia, overdoses, and there's ones that basically that have just gone and you don't know if they're in prison, they've left the area or they've passed away. So that's the hard side of it. You know, it's a lot of smiles and happiness. You know, we've attended some funerals over the years as well where we've represented Emmaus, you know, in these towns, yeah. Bedford now, since we started it back up again, is not as bad because they're all housed. So they basically use us for food, because basically the cost of living crisis, people can't afford food. So we're going out. The odd occasion you'll get someone obviously who's been kicked out for rent arrears, or they've been kicked out of their associated housing for abusive, whatever. So they become homeless. In Bedford it's quite good because it's only for a short time. So we'll give them advice, or we'll give them sleeping bags and tents, just to get them through that initial period until they can get housed again. Northampton, there's a lot more homelessness that we see. That's people who choose that lifestyle. There's 2 or 3 that will live that lifestyle even through lockdown. They could not stand the 4 walls. They still lived on the streets, and they'll probably die on the streets. With Wellingborough, which we started up a couple of years ago now, was approached by the street pastors in Wellingborough to offer a food service. We started off, they wanted us to do half an hour at the Daylight Centre in their car park of an evening. And I thought that wasn't long enough, because we're not just there to give coffee, food, pot noodles. We are there to interact with them, make relationships with them, you know, and have a bond. There was a guy last night that we met in Northampton. He had just recently become homeless a couple of days ago, and he was in his, I think, early 30s, and he was actually, I was about to swear then, really scared of the first time being homeless on the street. So I sort of like gave him a referral form, but he'd already gone to the council and filled out online the referral form to either come to Carlton or Leicester and Rutland, Emmaus communities. So I came back, spoke to support, and it's on our system. So we're going to speak to him on Monday, because he hasn't got a phone. So he's going to go into the council with his key worker there, and we'll speak to him. He's got no addictions, he's a lovely guy. That's what you've got to do with people that don't have addictions and become homeless for the first time. Because if you don't catch them in sort of like the first week, or maybe 10 days, the temptation to join these groups who have addictions is really, really strong. Because you want to fit in, you want to forget about the world and forget the situation you're in. So the longer you leave it, then you can lose them. And that's the hardest thing, to get someone back out of an addiction. You need to really sort of like move quickly in the outreach work and getting people into communities before they get addicted, I believe. That's a strong thing I believe in. And we did have some success a few years ago. A lad called TJ in Northampton, you probably met him. Yeah, he came and met us on the Wednesday, spoke to him with James, one of our trustees. The next day we spoke to support. They was on the phone to him. We got him a taxi, got him into the community, become a companion. Did really, really well. He ploughed into the stomps with me, you know, because he wanted to give back, because he knew how difficult it was on the streets. And now he's moved on. He's met a partner. He's moved down south to Farnborough. He pops up every sort of like 8 weeks.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you grasp as much as you possibly can out of the community and just give back, because Emmaus, I can only speak for my community here at VC, that they give you so much, you know, you shouldn't take things for granted. I had nothing basically when I was homeless, and they give you everything here. It is hard being in the community when there's so many companions, you know, it's really difficult and living on site.
Yeah.
But that's why I threw myself into solidarity. You get off site, you're helping, you're giving, and I've got a massive passion for it, and I basically will do this till I die, in all honesty, because I get so much out of it.
You can tell.
Yeah. I've had a lot of help with guys and staff along that journey, a lot of help.
So you've got a band of volunteers now that...
Yeah, got companions, different companions come out each night. It's a great help. We've got staff members come out, trustees. And it's nice to see, because when we sort of like started Northampton and staff and trustees were coming out, they basically looked like deer in headlights at the world of homelessness. They only see sort of like figures in the odd report on TV until they sort of like came out and saw it face to face, how vulnerable these people are and how actually appreciative they are in what we do and what we give. They're just in awe, because that's our ethos. Solidarity is Emmaus and ABPA's ethos, to serve those who suffer most. And we can't forget that. We've got to keep that always at the forefront of our minds, you know, and that's what makes communities strong, I believe, or can make them strong and stronger. Because it helps people's well-being as well. You find if you're in a community and you don't actually leave the community, you're isolated, but if you come out and see these people are more vulnerable than yourselves, it gives them a little stepping stone as well. It makes them stronger each time they come out, you know, and it's really nice. They know me by my name. You know, I'm the first person there. If they're down, give them a cuddle, you know, try and give them a wee bit of strength and stuff like that. That's the most positive thing, you know. You can't think, oh, I can't touch this person, because that one hug could save their life, you know. Those little words, like I said, I won't speak to people like 4 or 5 days. And then when you came across somebody and you opened up and you spoke to somebody, you felt like you've been speaking for a week, even though you're speaking for 5 minutes. And that is like, it was a big leap in my heart that kept me going for the next sort of like week of silence and loneliness. Well, when we started off, it was like I said, it was with rucksacks and trolleys and that, and obviously the numbers increased. You know, people actually knew where we started to park, so the numbers increased. So we ended up having to set up big tables in the street and offer our services there. What I'd really like to do is have a big enough community with volunteers so we can go out and continue to do the tables, offering our services there. But I'd like to take another 3 people and start doing the stomp again, where you can get to the vulnerable people. There's a lot of people who are diabetic and their feet and legs, you know, they're not able to get to you, or there's the vulnerable ones that don't want to be around big crowds, and find ones that don't know about us. So ideally that's what I'd really like to do, is set up the tables. This would be more only Northampton, because that's bigger town. Bedford I wouldn't need to do that. Wellingborough I wouldn't need to do that, because I know the landscape there. But Northampton, I would really ideally like to take a second team out so we can basically, hit the streets again and take food out to people who aren't able to make us. Because, if you've got addictions or you've got problems with your feet or your legs or anything like that, you can't make that walk all the way into town. That's why you see a lot of the ill ones, everyone probably might think they're beggars, but they can't make it to these soup kitchens, etc. So they will sit at certain points around shops some are beggars, but some are unable to walk. They're too ill to walk, so they will sit there for like handouts and that. So that's what I'd love to do again, get walking around Northampton. Yeah, I'd need more manpower, because obviously at the moment we're basically 3 companions and a driver for Northampton, and it's 2 companions and a driver, Wellingborough, and same in sort of like Bedford, but with Northampton I'd need to double that. So with the amount of stuff we'd have to take out, so we'd have to take portable water urns, then tents, sleeping bags, toiletries, hand sanitisers, socks, toothbrush, toothpaste. So we'd physically have to carry that like we did in the early days with companions. The idea of these stomps is to give them a little bit more strength, a little more power, a little bit more confidence. Also, I think we'll be losing something if we relied on outside help. Ideally, that would be lovely to start it off, but the whole thing about the stomp and what we do in sort of like solidarity and outreach is to get people out their shells, to get people to help, give back, and that will give them strength, and that will help them in their decisions when they choose to move on. I've taken people to Snowdon a couple of times, one last year and one before lockdown, because these guys were sort of like doing really well, and I just wanted to take that little step further. So took that. Yeah, because they used to like sit in there like dark rooms, gaming and things like that, and so I took them to Snowdon and took them up. We got to the summit both times, and basically coming sort of like down, I said, you've done something really major in your life today. If you ever go out in that world and someone tells you can't do something, you go for a job interview and they say you're not good enough, that could knock someone's self-esteem and take them all the way back to the beginning again. But I've always said, if someone ever says that to you in any way of life, always remember in the back of your head what you achieved reaching the summit of Snowdon. A lot of people don't do that, and you've done it. So always remember that there's always going to be knockbacks in life, but that happens to everyone, not just people in communities. It happens to everyone. Just keep going forward. You don't always get what you want the first time. It can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 times. It's basically like some people with their driving lessons. Don't get knocked back because you failed the first time. Just keep pushing, keep learning, keep pushing. Understand why you failed the first time and work on that. And that goes with anything you have in life. Yeah, I'd like to go Snowdon again. There's a couple of us that have been doing wild water swimming over the winter, which was, weren't the best time of year to start it. They sort of like said to us, you're supposed to start in summer, then work your way to the cold water. But no, I'd like to go back to Snowdonia, because where our base camp there was, there's the Electric Mountain and the slate mines. And at the bottom of that, there's a big sort of like reservoir where you can do kayaking, water sports, or just general swimming. So that'd be what I'd like to do this year. So I want people to achieve something beyond their goals in that sense, because the 2 guys that came with us, they didn't realise that mountain range was as big as it was, like Snowdonia National Park. They thought it was just like a mountain, and that was it. But until you actually get there, then you see how in awe that they actually were, the size of the mountain range, Solidarity, I'd like to, I don't know, I know there's like, yeah, it's just solidarity. I'm just so into the solidarity work that I do. And I love to do it sort of like 5 days a week, because I do the 3 days, which is quite a lot when you're sort of like, you're working as well, you know, then you're going out of an evening. So, but that is the only thing I can actually see that ticks all the boxes, say. You know, if you're just going for a job interview, you need to tick all the boxes for you to want to go for that. Because there's no point in going into a job that you're not going to be enjoying. I enjoy solidarity, and I love, I don't know, maybe to find something that I can focus on going out and helping. You know, there's Milton Keynes down the road where they need a huge amount of help, and there's no Emmaus sort of like in the area apart from us. They've got huge problems. Yeah, we've got a good sort of like partnership with the night shelter, but you know, we get people in from Milton Keynes, but it's also being able to get out there and help the people that aren't ready for Emmaus. Or there's a lot of people that as soon as you say you have to give up your benefits, they don't want to do that. Then they're not basically at that right stage in their journey in coming to an Emmaus community. You know, I think they're still sort of like lost. They don't know what path they need to sort of like take. It's a shame really, because if you could sort of like take them away from addiction and drop them into a community like this is beautiful. Well, you know, I've always been sort of like outbound, outgoing. Like that's why I was able to cope when I was homeless. You know, in the woods and that is, yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, even in the winter, it's beautiful. It really is. It gave me the chance to give back. I've always given to charity, it's quite close to my heart, but my journey from being homeless to being here gave me the opportunity, and yeah, gave me the opportunity to go out and help all those people who can't help themselves. They don't have the confidence to help themselves. Now with the cost of living, they don't have the money to feed themselves. And it's a big, yeah, it's a drug doing solidarity work. It's just really good. So that's a long sentence, I know, but
No, perfect.
it's just solidarity. Yeah.